Hi, everybody. Meteorologist Joe Chaffee, 7:03 Eastern Time on the 13th of September as Hurricane Florence bears down on the North Carolina coast and getting ever closer, albeit at an absolute crawl in terms of how fast this thing is moving. And those of you, by the way, a number of you, and I've been watching it too, the live stream from Frying Pan, which is a Coast Guard station way out offshore. I think it's about 25 or 30 miles out. The last observation that I actually can tell you, it was 50 gusting to 69 with 24-foot seas. Okay, I mean, just it's incredible because a few of you have asked that question. Also, just checking the latest 7 o'clock position update from the National Hurricane Center, located at 33.9 north, 76.4 west. It is moving west-northwest at 5 miles an hour, just about crawling now. And the Hurricane Center actually, on the 5 o'clock advisory, had top winds at 100 miles an hour. There's an Air Force reconnaissance aircraft in there. They must have seen something with regards to the wind speed, because they nudged it up to 105 at 6 o'clock, and they left it there. And on the 7 o'clock update, NOAA reports a NOAA observing site at Cape Lookout, North Carolina, sustained 69, gusting to 86. That's pretty impressive. A private weather station in Davis, North Carolina, 59. Sustained. A weather flow station at Fort Macon, 55, gusting to 72. And they also report that water levels are rising quickly on the western side of Pamlico Sound, a gauge at Oriental, North Carolina, on the Neuse River. I hope I pronounced it correctly. Is recording a water height now 5.5 feet above normal. And the 33.9, 76.4 position is 85 miles east-southeast of Wilmington, North Carolina, or about 145 miles due east of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Again, top winds 105. A few people have also been, have mentioned, it's not a Category 3 anymore, it's a Category 2, et cetera, et cetera. At this stage of the game, I think the more important thing that's going on is the fact that and this started yesterday, the windfield on the storm has expanded. The area of gales runs out 200 miles from the center. That's fairly wide for a hurricane. It's 200 miles on the northwest side and the northeast side. It's a little less on the southwest side, and it's about the same, about 200 miles on the southeast side. That's a very large windfield, and also based on the reconnaissance aircraft report, which I'll show you in a bit, we're seeing the 64 to 83 knot wind when it's plotted out of pretty good distance from the center. So you don't necessarily have, when this storm was extremely tight, and you had a tight area of gales and a very tight area of hurricane force winds that with that extremely tight pressure gradient, yeah, you're going to have winds of 120, 130, 140 miles an hour. But as the storm expands, the gradient expands as well and lessens to some degree. So you get a wider area that gets impacted by wind, but the top speeds are a bit less. But, you get sustained winds of 50 to 60 miles an hour with gusts to 80 or 85 or 90. And this is going on for hours and hours and hours on end, just absolutely unrelenting. I can tell you, at least that's how it was where I was on Long Island with Hurricane Sandy. Just the wind was absolutely unrelenting. I'm inland by about 9 miles, by the way. The wind absolutely unrelenting. And the next morning, I saw the result, which was trees down just about everywhere. So just because the top winds are not at some extreme, very impressive higher number doesn't mean that there can't be issues with this. And also, one of the things I think that's probably going on is that Florence at this point is probably, sitting or literally crawling across the deep warm water of the Gulf Stream and tapping that energy, and that might be giving it a little bit of kick here at the last minute before it gets further west, and then you start to get the circulation to interact with the land and a few other things going on with the slow movement. You start to get the water getting upwelled. But nonetheless, very impressive. You could see it on the satellite view. There's no real eye evident, but the close-up satellite view will show you, you can actually see the cloud tops just building up. So there might be a little bit of strengthening going on here. Here's the this is the Morehead City, North Carolina radar. It's the one radar at the moment where you can actually see the full center of the hurricane. And the bands of rain are getting very close to Goldsboro, North Carolina. You can see it on the radar echoes as they start pinwheeling back to the west. There isn't very much going on at the moment. Once you go south and west of Wilmington and toward the South Carolina line, it looks like there was a band of squalls that just moved through Myrtle Beach. But as far as a lot of action, it's really with the core center that is now sweeping inland. The Outer Banks are getting clobbered at this point fairly hard. We're going to switch. We're going to switch around to a couple of radar views here. So I'm going to bring that up on the window, and here we go. So this will give you this is again the first picture we have is the Morehead City radar, which is the radar that you just saw. Out of curiosity, I'm going to pull up the storm total here and see in terms of rain what's fallen so far. And in fact, you look at the scale. This is, remember, we're very early in the game here. It's going to be raining all night and through tomorrow in many of these areas. But we've got already had across the Outer Banks and some of the barrier beaches here anywhere from 2 to 2.5, 3 inches, and we've got a little bit of red showing up. So there looks like there's a small area that's gotten 5 inches on the western edge of the Outer Banks, and of course lesser amounts, but starting to get into the 0.6 of an inch to an inch in the darker blue. So that extends inland, and that rain didn't really get going until this afternoon. Back to the radar loop, and I'm going to go down. We'll go down one radar to the south, and this is the view now from the Wilmington, North Carolina radar, and you see that band that just moved through Myrtle Beach in South Carolina. By the way, and we've seen this happen a few times today where I've pulled it up. I've already seen at least 2 tornado warnings that flashed on the screen very quickly and then disappeared. The center is evident. The pace of the movement there just kind of creeping along very, very slowly. Solid bands of rain and heavy squalls. As each one of these bands moves through, the wind really probably kicks up pretty hard and gusty. And again, this is going to be an all-night thing here, and a good chunk of tomorrow, considering how slow this is moving. I'm going to run up to the radar to the north of Morehead City, to the Wakefield, Virginia radar, and there are some, you can see there the northern edge of the rain is coming in just north of Duck, North Carolina, or very close to Duck, North Carolina. Not too much happening when you go north of the Virginia border, although you do see that there's some renegade squalls and showers and downpours that are moving westward around it. This is sort of periphery stuff that's going on here. It's the main area is down in North Carolina right now, and not too far south from the Virginia border. But I suspect that you're not going to see it get much further north here, because before too long this thing is going to start turning more toward the west. So busy radar indeed. We'll check the rainfall amounts here in this area. There you go. So you can see there's 1 inch being reflected here off the Doppler. By the way, this is a good time to point out to anyone that's watching this on a replay. We are at 7:13 Eastern time. So be advised that you're watching dated material, so you want to make sure you check the National Weather Service website at weather.gov for all the latest updated weather information. And of course, remember also that the nhc.noaa.gov, the website of the National Weather Service, is your go-to place with respect to information, official information. And you want to use that or weather.gov or your local officials when it comes to making decisions, which really should have been made a long time ago at this point. So the enhanced satellite it kind of is giving us a bit of a clue. Perhaps the little jump up in the wind is, you can see the flare up that's going on here on the loop, and actually you can almost pick out the warm spot there. That's the eye on that the last frame here. I'm gonna refresh this and see if we can get some additional frames on there, something a little more recent. Let me just set this up again. And in fact, I'm going to go to the last frame. Right in there, folks. You see it right there? That looks like there might be an eye coming back, or at least a reflection of the eye. Right there in the middle, surrounded by that large black area. So perhaps the Gulf Stream is causing this to just get just a little bit of strengthening here. We'll see what we're going to go to the reconnaissance aircraft report at the moment. I'm going to just see if we get a fresh one here. I got to tell you, at least from the last report, one of the things that I've noticed, there seems to be more reports of winds between 83 and 96 knots on this particular reconnaissance mission. I'm not seeing anything. I'm trying to look for the whitish wind barbs, and I don't see any. But he's got another pass to go through, so we'll see what he comes up with that. But you'll notice, by the way, each one of these boxes is roughly 60 nautical miles. So you go up almost 60 nautical miles to the north, and you're seeing this belt of dark purple. That's all 64 to 83 knot winds just touching the North Carolina coast. So the hurricane force winds on the north side seem to go out at least 60 to 70 miles, and certainly every bit of 70 or even 80 miles to the north east of the center. You're getting all these winds. And where it's not 64 to 83, it's every bit of 60 to 64 or 55 to 64. And those are the wind barbs that you see being shown in red. So this is a really, again, an expansive field of gales and storm force winds and hurricane force winds for this hurricane as it spreads out. I'm a little bit, it's a little concerning. It's actually maybe a little bit more than a little concerning because of the widening field. I think that is going to have an impact on the storm surge that is going to occur and is already occurring apparently from reports that we've seen. Here's another satellite view. By the way, as always, thanks to tropicaltidbits.com and Levi Cowan for his magnificent website. And you look right before it goes dark. That's the sun setting, and then it's going to switch to the infrared, which is it's in the process of doing. But if you look really close, you can actually see the cloud tops exploding here. So that could be perhaps a new eye developing. The Hurricane Center did mention something in their discussion about this. Let me... Just with respect to maintaining its strength, I'm trying to find it here. Let's see. Satellite and radar presentation of Florence have changed little this afternoon. 20 to 25 nautical mile eye, waxing and waning as intrusions of dry air have occasionally eroded the southern and eastern eye wall. Despite the occasional ragged appearance, reconnaissance data indicate that the pressure has remained steady at 955, and on it goes. You can read that discussion, by the way. Just go to nhc.noaa.gov to the advisories that are posted up for Hurricane Florence and all the other tropical storms that are running around, which we're not really going to spend time on here because there isn't too much happening with those other systems for the most part. So the next thing we're going to look at is a jump to where this track is going to be from here on in. I don't really think that anything has changed very much in terms of what to expect. You can see the tracking models basically bring it very close to Wilmington and kind of straddle it west-southwestward or southwestward along the Carolina coast, bringing it inland, perhaps completely inland, near or just to the northeast of Myrtle Beach. This is going to be a very, very slow process. And then inland into northwestern South Carolina, and then on up into the Appalachians. Now, for the areas to the north, particularly Virginia, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, New York State, and southern New England, the big question becomes, are we going to get anything from this in terms of the remnant rains? And the answer to that is going to depend on the track of the remnant low and just exactly what's going to be left when it moves inland with that remnant low. If it tracks west of the Appalachians, the impact to most of the areas, say from Pennsylvania north and east, won't be would be completely manageable, I believe, and not much central and eastern Pennsylvania, maybe not so much western PA, but the rainfalls would be perhaps more manageable if it takes a track west of the Appalachians. If it takes a track along or east of the Appalachians, it becomes a different issue. And this is something that the European has been going on. And since the European has been the model that's been kind of leading everybody along here this week with this with this more westerly track and southwesterly track, it leads some confidence as to whether it might have the right idea. The funny thing is that the European is is on the southern edge of the guidance envelope of the track models here as it's moving into South Carolina, and yet it winds up being on the eastern edge of things when we get into next week. If the remnant rain issue for the areas from, say, Pennsylvania north and east are going to come Monday night and Tuesday. For West Virginia and Virginia, particularly the inland areas, that's going to come sooner. And again, where does that heavy rain set up? That's the big question, because ultimately we know where it's going to set up north of the track of the storm as it is now. There are going to be some amounts of 10, 20 inches or more. I don't know what the top number is. I'm sure the top number in some local areas will be much higher than that. But then we're going to watch and wait to see that rain start to advect northwestward into western Virginia and West Virginia over the weekend. As far as the weather in the Northeast is concerned, by the way, Friday and Saturday and Sunday are going to be 2 great days. Tomorrow's going to be another day where we're dealing with clouds and all the humidity we have, but we'll probably see some improvement. But Saturday and Sunday look fine. There's obviously no impact from this storm as it's moving inland. All the impact is from the North Carolina border south, and particularly from, say, south of Elizabeth City down to the rest of coastal North Carolina. Here's the GFS from late this afternoon. It really isn't too much different from the European today as it brings the storm inland, straddling the coast. I mean, literally seems to ride southwestward along the coastline. This is Friday night, so between now, which is roughly here, okay, and by Friday night, we are here, okay? Right now, 2 a.m., 8 a.m., 2 p.m., 8 p.m. I think you could probably walk that distance along the Carolina coast that the hurricane moves tomorrow faster than the hurricane itself. Of course, assuming there's no bad weather while you're doing it, because you're not going to be able to do it now. One of the things that I want to point out, look at the winds over the Outer Banks as the hurricane center moves to the west are going to gradually turn southeast and then south. And this is a problem because the water that is coming in from the high tides and the storm surge and that's there now won't be able to get out. that water is going to remain, and then you're going to have another high tide with southerly winds pushing even more water in as you go into the day on Friday. So this is why the flooding and the storm surge flooding here is going to be quite serious and apparently fairly extensive. Once we get, even on Saturday morning, you're still getting southeast winds coming in off the water up and down the North Carolina coast. Those of you that if you're in say Charleston or Myrtle Beach, you've got a northwest wind, and that wind is going to gradually go around to south and south to west and southwest, depending on the track. So you're getting it all coming in backwards with the system coming in from the northeast. And here's the GFS, the late afternoon GFS when we have the remnant low center. This is by Sunday night in the right, what it looks like right on the border or just inland in Kentucky there near the western western part of Virginia, and there is quite a bit of heavy rain. So in western North Carolina and into western Virginia. Here are the rainfall amounts. I'm going to do them on this map first. And we've seen the GFS kind of shift a little bit to the northwest today. By the way, always remember that when you see these model amounts, you got to be very cautious, because in the case of tropical systems, this could be, in some areas, could easily be 50 to 100% higher than what the model is forecasting. And certainly, 10-inch plus rains into western North Carolina, and there's this band here. The purple is at least 2, the darker purple up to 6. But you could easily double these amounts. Now the thing is, it doesn't really do much more than that as you go further north, because of the fact that it takes the low center west of the Appalachians, and that may not be correct. We may wind up with something that goes east of the Appalachians, which would be more problematic. But this is what the GFS does. I'm going to bring the European up, and here we go. So here's the GFS. There's your remnant low coming inland and then moving. It goes almost into western Ohio before it moves on up over Lake Ontario. The European, and this is for about 3 or 4 runs in a row now, has been saying maybe not. The European, the other difference with the European is it has a much more intact low, okay, that it holds on to. And there you have 1,004 low on the Tennessee-North Carolina border, which is not too far from where the GFS has it. But the difference is that the GFS now takes it up almost into northwestern Ohio, whereas the European takes it into western Maryland at this point. And this is going to bring, if this model is correct, then we're talking, probably a good chunk of rain for West Virginia and Western Virginia on the order of 6 inches plus, and maybe every bit of a 2 to 4 inch rainfall for Pennsylvania and New Jersey, New York, southern New York, Long Island, and Connecticut. And the low actually intensifies a little bit as it moves into the Gulf of Maine. By the time we get to Tuesday evening, Tuesday night, the rains will be over with. They'll be ending from west to east late in the day on Tuesday, and weather conditions will be improving on Wednesday with drier and actually cooler, less humid air. Yay, hooray, will be coming in for Wednesday and Thursday of next week. Now, the model differences here, by the way, have to do with the fact that the trough to the north that comes in, here's your upper ridge, which we've been talking about. You guys know the drill here, splits in 2, rebuilds to the north. Then you've got the jet stream in Canada dropping down as the ridge weakens, and the European has a distinct shortwave trough there Tuesday morning, centered in central Pennsylvania, down into western Virginia, western North Carolina, that it sort of merges with the northern stream by the time we get to Wednesday morning. The GFS is a little different. It's got a kind of a flatter look to it. You can hardly find the shortwave here on the GFS. It lifts it up much further to the west, almost to the Indiana-Ohio border, and then it loses it as that northern jet stream comes down, and kicks it away to the northeast. So model differences here, folks, which we're kind of used to, and we'll have to just have to rectify them. Today is Thursday. We've got a lot of time before we have to figure this out as far as remnant rains are concerned with respect to the northeast. Let's pull up the current weather observations and see what's going on. Now, there's a buoy here. This is buoy. Let's see if it'll come up. Sometimes I can get to come. This is buoy 41037. North-northeast, gusting to 72 miles an hour there. Okay, frying pan is the one that says 24 feet here. Onslow Bay outer wave rider. I'm pretty sure if this isn't frying pan, it sure must be close to it. Maybe it's this one. Let's see. That's buoy 41025, 72 mile an hour gust, 25-foot seas. I'm thinking that this one must be it, but I'll have to double check. That's got to be it, folks. I can't imagine, that it's not it. But I'm going up along the northern part here. Most of the sustained winds are running 25 to 30 along the coast. We have a few gusts of 40. This is north of Cape Hatteras. Cape Hatteras, we're seeing along in those areas gusts to 47. There's one underneath there that I can't see. Sustained at 30. This is 50 gusted. This is 41025 is 50 gusting to 72. The rapid deploy gauge at Atlantic Beach is northeast at 34, gusting to 51. Beaufort is also, that looks like at least 30. I don't know if there's a barb underneath there, if it's 35. Also probably gusting to 50 or at least 50. Emerald Isle is 42, gusting to 57. Don't have any report from Morehead City. I'm looking down the coast now. I wish I knew what this one, that's buoy 41037 with the 72 knot gust. Here is buoy 41013. We've got a 43 gusting to 60, 63. And, now we're in the vicinity of Myrtle Beach. So the winds here, of course, have not picked up yet. But you see where the trends are with respect to some of these gusts. And I suspect they're going to get even higher. By the way, there's probably some missing in there. I had this set to where we could at least get as many obs as possible. But only a handful seem to be popping up here. You can get this map, by the way, and build it yourself if you go to any National Weather Service website from weather.gov and just go to current weather, and you'll get this. The NWS EDD stands for Enhanced Data Display, and the radar is going to try and load up. A lot of people are getting in here all at the same time, which is making it a bit problematic. So, we're 30 minutes into this live stream here, folks. What I'm going to do is come back to you guys on the board and try to get some questions done. Let me just set this back. If you're watching from North Carolina, welcome, of course. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Hope everything is safe where you are. And if you are on the coast, that you evacuated to higher ground. That would have been a good idea as Hurricane Florence continues to move west-northwestward. Okie doke. So let's come back here. We'll take some questions and then and we'll chat a bit and go from there. Sophie Fabre, Charlotte's the big rain for you in Charlotte, North Carolina, no doubt. Let's see. I've seen a live stream of the middle of the ocean, said Tropical News of Florence of the shore and one of the flags story. Yeah, that's Frying Pan. That's that is Frying Pan, which is an unmanned Coast Guard / weather station that's out there. Because a couple people were asking why don't they take the flag down? Because there's nobody there, and probably hasn't been anybody there. Maybe they go out there once a week or once a month. I don't know, but there certainly isn't anybody there at the moment. Israel landfall is a good question. It'll be on the coast sometime tomorrow morning, and then it may just hang there right along the immediate coastline. One of the big issues will be going forward is the fact that you're going to have the center sitting partially on water and partially on land. Let's see, flooding. I'm just reading through your chats here, folks, and your comments. Thank you very much, by the way, for taking the time to do that. Let's go. We don't need more rain in southern Connecticut for Shelly Man Studios. I get it, but that'll be next week. We'll deal with that over. We'll get a handle on that over the weekend. There's plenty of time to take a look at what will happen with the remnants of all of this. Israel will be finished talking with finished talking this hurricane activity when we're finished talking with the hurricane activity. That is when the hurricane is gone, and this is no longer doing anything of consequence. And that may be a while because it's going to have further impact through the weekend. Bobby Livingsworth, that slowing down is not is all anticipated. Think about the fact that the forecasting through all of this has been very good, in spite of what happened yesterday with the shear that showed up and the weakening, which was probably maybe a blessing more than anything else. But the forecasting through all of this has been very good. The slowing down here is going to be a big problem when it comes to the rainfall, and a big problem when it comes to the winds along the coast lasting to gale or storm force or higher for a very, very long time. So that's why I'm not really focusing too much. It's a Cat 2, it's a strong Cat 2. If there's a little bit of juice going back into it right now that nudges it back to a Cat 3, okay, but it's close to land anyway, so it's only going to wind up deteriorating at some point. But everything's happening now, so it's. I don't know that it could really make it that much worse if it slightly strengthened for a brief time, only to weaken when it gets close to the coastline. Let's see, the 2018, according to Anthony Orr, Atlantic hurricane season has produced the second most named storm days between September 1st and 13th on record, trailing only 1964. Very interesting. Let's see. I'm trying to get my thoughts together, folks. It's been a very long day doing 2 live streams so far, and I'm going to have another live stream coming up at 9:15 on Facebook. Since hurricanes tend to get bigger as they go north, asks Chantel M. Thank you for being here. Will the expansion reverse as it travels south along the coastline? Usually, once they start expanding, they don't tighten back up. Even though this is moving southwestward, the interaction with the land is probably going to cause the circulation to expand even more. Okay, but no, it won't tighten up as far as this storm is concerned. Perhaps you might get a tightening near the center with the eye a bit, but in terms of bringing everything in, I don't think so. And I think that even if we wind up getting this nudged up another 5 miles an hour or so on the wind, I don't think it's going to make any material difference in the structure that we have at the moment. Patrick McGill, thank you very much for the kind words. I saw Chris Alley was on here earlier. Let's see if he's still here. Chris Alley's my buddy. We worked together not too many years ago. Time does fly. A lot of farmers are taking it on the chin. Yeah, that's quite true, says Scott Olson. Totally true. Hope the wild horses come through this okay, Chris Bethune. You know something? That's one of the beautiful sights that I got to see at the Outer Banks of North Carolina when I was there, out there many years ago. And yeah, you know what? The animals seem to know when this sort of stuff is going on, and they seem to figure it out. So I wouldn't be too concerned. They've gone through hurricanes before, so I'm sure they know what to do and where to go when this sort of stuff happens. Okay, moving up further along the chart. Guys are all talking turkey and deer. Okay, so now we're at the point of the beginning. Let me scroll back down to see if there are any new comments. Yeah, Johnny Quest. The super typhoon that's going into Southeast Asia. I really haven't paid very much attention to it because I've been so Florence focused. But if I get a chance, I'll give it a look. Are you worried about those thunderstorms? Asked Justin Harris, blowing up around the center. Well, it certainly could be a sign. I think it's probably a sign that we're getting just again a little bit of a last minute juice of strengthening. And the Hurricane Center, by the way, did mention in their latest discussion that it was possible that while it was sitting over the Gulf Stream here and moving slowly, that it could strengthen slightly. I'm sure they're not too surprised by this. Do I think Dio Nankumar another eye wall replacement cycle? Well, I think I think it went through one during the earlier today. So perhaps that we're coming out of that. Is what we're seeing, or at least an attempt of a new eye to form. They did also mention on one of the prior discussions that earlier today, where the eye looked like it was open on one side, it wasn't even completely closed. So perhaps this last round of strengthening is causing the eye to close up. PRJ Grudge, thanks for hitting super chat. Really appreciate it. You're the man. Thank you very much. All right, so because this mainstream media outlets are hoping so badly that we manifest some destruction, unfortunately, we have the light. We, the light, have not allowed that. Voided aggregate. Let me just say this, and this really annoyed me to no end today, was to see CNN with the headline across the bottom, "Storm of a Lifetime." The hyperbole is insane. Storm of a lifetime? Come on. This is where I get upset with stuff. You wonder why people don't take you seriously anymore. And in terms of, news gathering operations in general, I'm not I'm really not trying to make a political statement here, but more along the lines of a quality statement. Do your job. To sit there and come up with all these, it's sort of like, you watch and all right, which person can write the more creative, audience-grabbing headline better than the next one? Storm of a lifetime? I think if you talk to some people that maybe went through Harvey last year in the Gulf Coast, or perhaps Hurricane Maria, last year in Puerto Rico, or Irma along the coast of Cuba, and of course Maria and Irma in the islands. And I'm just talking about last year. Let's talk Katrina. Let's talk a whole host of storms for my area. Let's talk Sandy. Okay, do the comparing afterward. That's the thing. If this is going to be something that is going to break some kind of record somewhere, and maybe it will break some, rainfall records, et cetera, et cetera. But in terms of wind and in terms of pressure, it's not the strongest storm to come into North Carolina. It's the first major since 1994. It's, Hurricane Hazel back in 1954 holds the record with regards to the strength coming into North Carolina as an almost Category 4. I think it might have even been a Category 4 when it made landfall. Hugo for South Carolina, which was a strong Category 4. Andrew in Florida. Need I go on? I mean, it does a disservice to people that you're trying to convince that maybe the right thing to do is to leave their home. And that's not an easy thing to do. It doesn't help when you have all this hyperbole, especially if it winds up in that particular area that it isn't, not every place winds up getting, there's going to be variability in these things. And one of the things that the head of the Hurricane Center told me when I met with him last year, he said in Louisiana, there were people that stayed during Katrina and survived and assumed that the same outcome would happen when Hurricane Ike came a couple of years later, and those people perished. under Hurricane Ike, because they made the assumption that everything was going to be exactly the same as it was with Katrina, and you cannot do that. So I just kind of wish that they would back off from the hyperbole, try to get the information right. I lost the radar here because I wanted to update it. Here we go. Let me bring it back up to the top. You know, we're trying to get the forecast right and do our job without, you know, any exaggeration. You know, I try very much to keep everything sort of even keel with all with these things, and look at them in a very methodical way. And that's why we follow these as they move along. We watch how the forecast evolves, and this way, those of you who are on here, you certainly get a flavor of what meteorologists go through on a daily basis when it comes to figuring these things out. Wendy Blank pointing out the important reason why we have to at least pay attention with respect to those remnants when they move up the Appalachians, because there are towns that have been underwater in Pennsylvania for 2 months now, as she says. It's part of the weather cycle. Places along the coast are better prepared for this than little towns scattered around the various states. I wouldn't disagree with that. Folks that live along the coast, particularly folks that have grown up for the coast, they know that coastal storms provide kind of a different weather experience. And by the way, I must say, at least in the state of Pennsylvania, you have a governor in Pennsylvania that thinks it's very good that when you have weather disasters happening, to have a meteorologist with him to convey the correct information. And I applaud your state for doing that. I wish that were the case in the People's Republic of the State of New York and in New Jersey, because with some of the misinformation that was going on for my area was insane, making it sound, using phrases like severe flooding, strong winds, collateral damage. I mean, these were quotes by government officials for my area, and I just was sitting and listening to this saying, you've got to be kidding me. Except for the fact that the seas are roughed up, and we did have some surfers having to be rescued today along the South Shore. That's really been it as far as this is concerned. I'd be very curious, by the way, just out of curiosity, Patrick Greenwald, you're saying Florence is a dud, but could you tell me, could you just at least say where you are? I'd be curious as to where you are geographically, because your weather experience may not necessarily be what other people are getting. You might be too far to the west. I don't know. If you could just elaborate on where you are. The Outer Banks, from what we've been hearing, Brock Tate, getting hit very hard. And there's already 6 feet of water from tidal surge in Pamlico, on the western side of Pamlico Sound, as reported by the National Hurricane Center. Garo Vestos, thank you very much for the kind words. Do I think Isaac will enter the Gulf? Honestly, I gave it a glance. I really did not look at it very closely because of everything being front and center for Florence. But when things start calming down with Florence, then we can bring up the other storms. I can actually very quickly, if you want, we can take a look at what's happening. Before that, let me just bring up, I want to see if WPC has changed its rainfall map, and it actually has. I thought that this might happen, so this is, I don't think they're sitting around listening to me. It was just a good guess on my part. For expanding the heavy rain shield, and WPC, the Weather Prediction Center, has the purple area now of heavy rain a bit further northwest into North Carolina. That's the area of 20 inches plus. So pretty much everywhere from, say, between Jacksonville, North Carolina, and Wilmington, or perhaps about near Jacksonville, south and west, into southeastern South Carolina, east of Myrtle Beach, you're talking 20 inches plus. The purple, the lighter purple there, is 15 inches plus, and that almost, but not probably, goes back to about Myrtle Beach. That is fairly extensive, and this is cumulative over the next 7 days, but obviously most of this is going to be between now and Sunday. Up into Virginia, it looks like they've pushed the 4 to 6 inch line a little bit further north in western Virginia and in parts of southeastern West Virginia. So I think Johnny Quest, who's on our board here, who's from that area, is of course concerned because that area getting so much rain, as we've said many times this summer, on the order of several feet or more in some places, almost a year's worth of rain that has fallen there just this past 2 months. And reservoirs full, rivers full, another 4 to 6 inches of rain on top of this is not going to be a good thing. All right, let's go back to this. You still have, let's see if I can pull up the satellite loop. Hang on. I'm going to pull up we do things, those of you who are here for the first time, sometimes we do things on the fly, and if you've got ideas of something you want to see, you can always put your request and I'll try to do it for you. But if I forget, please forgive me. Okay, so I've got the full Caribbean loop. We'll take a look at this. You can see Florence on the upper left, Isaac on the lower right, and I think that's Joyce there that is up east-northeast. That's subtropical storm Joyce, which still has a circulation but doesn't look all that healthy at the moment. There's very little going on the west side. There's some small convection on the northeast side, but if you look at Isaac, you can actually see that the surface the actual low-level circulation has really come apart from the convection. So I think the question with regards to Isaac is what happens to that low-level circulation as it moves westward? Is it going to encounter conditions that would be supportive for development? I did not look, again, having not looked at it closely, it's hard for me to have an opinion on it. Hurricane, I didn't even get a chance to read the Hurricane Center's discussion regarding this, but once things start to at least calm down a bit, I'll keep a side eye on it, of course. I didn't see, weather models have been kind of going back and forth on the idea that maybe it would flare up as it moved westward in toward the northwestern Caribbean, or perhaps eventually getting into the eastern Gulf of Mexico. But when I looked today, late this afternoon and this evening, when you look at the GFS, it really didn't do very much of anything with it. What we can do, by the way, is if we'd like, I've got a little bit more time. Why don't we I'll bring up the YGFS. At least we could look at the jet stream pattern going forward, because the GFS has had problems. When I have been looking at this, just kind of peeking at it over the last few days, when we look at the upper airflow across North America, deep trough in the west. And by the way, they've been getting snow in southwest Canada. I had somebody message me about it, saying it's been kind of a pretty crazy September there after a dry, warm summer. But the trough in the west, you can see Florence here, that small circle that's down near South Carolina. The jet stream in Canada, the trough deep off the west coast. So you've got this strong west to east flow across southern Canada with the ridge in the east. Now, the model wants to try to bring that Canadian jet southward, but the ridge in the east is still there, and it's still there to some degree. By the time we get to next Friday, it's flat, though. In other words, it doesn't push all the way up. It just kind of pushes halfway up the east coast, and then the Canadian jet takes over north of, say, southern New Jersey, and keeps us close to some cooler, drier air. Eventually, it does try to bring troughing down. The jet stream tries to dip down into the Great Lakes, and late in the period, you have some attempt at a ridge in the west, but not anything really all that impressive. So it looks like at least the GFS model in its long range for the last 4 or 5 days keeps trying to get the ridge to go to the west in the long range, and the trough to come back into the east. And then what happens is every day it just backs off, and it first will start showing us getting a pretty decent shot of cooler air. Then it's less the case. I think it'll be decent enough for the middle and latter part of next week that we'll get a solid air mass change around here and see the humid conditions disappear for a while, because frankly, I'm kind of tired of it. So let's give one last check to the radar, and I'm going to come back to the board with you and go through some more of your questions. Refresh this so we can take a look. And there you can see the center, the convection there. Not a whole lot on the east side, or at least from what the radar can see, but you do see it on the west sides. And oh, there's a tornado warning, by the way. You see that red box that comes up near Morehead City, North Carolina, back to just east of Jacksonville, North Carolina. There is a tornado warning that was just issued, and we've got some flash flood warnings up. Those are the green. That's the green box that you see there that has been put up by the Weather Service. We're at 7:54 Eastern Time, so if you're watching this on a replay, this is obviously dated. Weather.gov is your go-to place for your local weather, and also the Hurricane Center, nhc.noaa.gov. Any maps that you've seen here, by the way, should not be used for making decisions. You should use official maps like the Hurricane Center's forecast for Hurricane Florence, and you can find that on nhc.noaa.gov. Mine have the 8 o'clock advisory, by the way. Coming back to the board here, so let's see. Just again, trying to get to some of your questions. Yeah, Patrick Greenwald, if you're in North and South Carolina, just get an umbrella and enjoy the rain. You still haven't told me where you are. Let's see. Do you think, what do I think? Jake asked a good question. What do I think of a meteorologist who stands in the hurricane and reports on it? You know what? A younger me would probably give a different answer. The older, more mature me at this point, you have to be out of your mind. I would never do it at all. I just wouldn't, and I saw what a lot of the news stations did by putting these people out in hurricane conditions last year in Irma and in Maria. I would never do that. I'd quit before I would stand out in a storm and put my life in danger. I have grown children now, and I have grandchildren, but yeah, there's just no way. Scott Couples, just so you know, we don't do geoengineering on this page. We don't do HARP or any of that nonsense. So if you want to do that here, you're gonna get thrown off. So just so you know that, Anthony Orr is one of the moderators on the page, and he's under strict orders to get rid of geoengineering and HARP people. Okay, because we don't want to hear it. Oh, so there he is. That's two of them. Okay, you know what? You're gone. Goodbye. That's it. I just don't tolerate nonsense here. That's just, you want to go do that someplace where you can talk to people who agree with you. Okay? JS Sweetie 24. Oh yeah, I agree with you. So sick of the humidity. I have to do one of those charts that I did not too recently with regards to the humidity here, which was one of the most humid summers that we've seen here in the last 50 years, believe it or not, when measured by dew points. Number of hours where the dew points have been above 70. It was already well up over 800 hours when I did this back a few weeks ago, and I'm sure if I do it again, I'll wait till Wednesday of next week to do it again. It's probably pushed the record even higher. Lucas asked, the Euro model says 30 inches north of Myrtle Beach. Is that unreasonable? You know what? I don't think it's impossible. I certainly don't think it's impossible because of the fact that this thing is moving so slowly. It's going to take 3 days. You're going to be raining there once it starts tonight, as the hurricane gets close enough. You're going to be raining there through tomorrow night, Saturday night, and probably most of Sunday before you start to see the rain relax a bit. One of the big problems here, by the way, is the fact that the circulation of this remains over water for a good chunk of the time, and that's just going to fire up some rain. There's going to fire up some intense rainfalls in some places, and it's just going to sit there because the hurricane itself is not moving. Where is it going to go? I wouldn't. It would. Let me put it this way: it really wouldn't shock me if we wind up. You wind up this hearing about amounts up in the neighborhood of 20 and 30 inches. Would not at all shock me. We saw what happened with Harvey, if you remember, with some amounts of 4 feet or more. So not impossible. All right, folks, coming up now, just about to 8 o'clock. So we've been yapping for almost an hour, and it's time for me to take a bit of a break. So I just want to show you, by the way, for those of you who are interested, I do have a page on Patreon. It is basically, I'm trying to make it a weather forecasting experience page where you can see my website posts, my videos, special videos that I cut specifically for Patreon members. I will be getting to that as soon as the hurricane gives me some time and calms down. It's for those of you who want to experience, weather website posts with no ads and that kind of thing. You might be interested in this. I put the link up for you. It's just asking a couple of bucks a month to get me a cup of coffee and a cigar every once in a while, and I will, now you got me confused as I just read somebody else's comment here. Sorry. For those of you who are interested, join my Patreon page. There's a lot of good stuff on there. Those that have been on it so far are really happy with it, and the link is up there on the chat board. Thank you, PRJ Grudge, hitting Super Chat again today. I really, really appreciate it greatly. Here's the schedule going forward. So we are going to do the Joe and Joe show tonight at 9:15. So I want to rest my voice for that. Rest my voice for that. Tomorrow, we'll do the 9 a.m. live stream like I've been doing this week, and we'll come back tomorrow night and do a 7 o'clock live stream and update you on what's going on with Hurricane Florence. And since we're almost to a weekend, we'll see what happens, okay? I'm sure I'll live stream both on Saturday and Sunday, but I'm not exactly sure yet in my head where I'm going with respect to the time of said live stream. So let me just go back and read some of these final posts that you guys have put up. Let's see. Talk about the phased array HARP radar at Brookhaven. Ask Chicken Little. You know what? I'm not going to. And you know what? Goodbye. You're gone. Yep, got rid of him. Okay, that's 2 less today. Excellent. The world is a better place. Any chance of strengthening? 8 o'clock advisory. You reminded me. I said I was going to check, so let's check the 8 o'clock advisory on Florence. Up, back down to 100 miles an hour. So I guess that little flare up, I don't know, maybe it couldn't have been a typo. They ran it for 2 hours that way. Let's see. Sustained hurricane force winds on the headline occurring along the North Carolina coast. 33.9, 76.4, 85 miles east-southeast of Wilmington, 145 east of Myrtle Beach. Top winds 100, minimum pressure of 955. The pressure has not changed. It's still sitting there at 955 millibars, so it's holding its own, 28.20 inches. Just trying to see if there's any, mention of these observations. 33.9, 76.4, moving slowly northwest at 5. Wind data from Hurricane Hunter, 100-mile-an-hour winds. Little change in strength is forecast. Okay, so here we go. NOAA, they're just basically repeating what I told you before with the wind obs gusting to 97, 82 gusting to 97, and that was at Point Lookout. And then at Fort Macon, 67 gusting to 99. And by the way, the home barometer at 9:55 is at 28.20 inches, which is probably below the bottom of most home barometers, believe it or not. Okay, so Alvin Algaran, another one. Goodbye. If they're controlling the weather and not we're part of the problem. Okay, that's nice. Goodbye. One less. Oh, J.S. Sweetie, I love you. That's wonderful. The whole time I thought they were talking about AARP. I got to remember that Please give me permission to use that. I will. I think that is hilarious. Thank you so much. Scott Briller, will I broadcast live from the Deer Park Library? Good question. I thought about it yesterday, and then I got distracted. So you know what? Let me think about it some more. I really think that's hilarious. I have to remember that. AARP, that is the great. You are the best. And yes, Tropical News, we are going to be banning. You know what? I may just stay on a few more minutes just to ban a few more people. Come on, let's go. Bring them on here, folks. Those of you, the HARP people, the geoengineering people, those of you who sit in your armchairs, you're throwing white wine vinegar into the air in order to counteract the spraying that's going on. Let's go. Put your comments up here. Well, we'll have you squashed faster than, we squash a bug. All right, you know what? Sometimes you got to end these things on a bit of a light note. No problem for asking questions, Javon. Did I miss your questions? I'm sorry if I did. There's a lot of folks talking over here. Who gave you a timeout? Did Anthony give you a timeout for saying that the hurricane would drop a category right before making landfall? Oh, okay. I didn't. Maybe Anthony gave you the timeout, but there was probably more because he's got a lot of patience. Okay. Oh yeah, I got rid of those two. No worries. It's all true, Joe, and you're wrong for this false information on the real picture. Goodbye. This is fun. I'm getting my viewer watching is going up while I'm sitting here like just basically banning trolls. Hey, yeah, that's a good idea, by the way, Space Jackson. Let's get the flat Earth people on here too. One of the funny things I did hear about the fact that I think if you go to the Flat Earth Society's page or their Facebook page or something, they have something that says we have members all over the globe. And just you got to be kidding me. I hope so. I got to think that somebody said, let's just say that for laughs because the irony is hilarious. I don't know. Someone said it was timed out for saying it was going to drop to a Category 2 and that he was spreading disinformation. I don't think I don't think. Why are you still on here? Okay, maybe that's why. That's okay. You're gone. Hopefully you're gone too. You're an idiot if you're still watching this, by the way. You're an idiot. Flat Earth people should be kicked out of the country. I happen to believe, by the way, just so you know, that it's not a flat Earth and it's not a round Earth. It's a 3-tiered structure separated by escalators. Okay, that's my vision of what the Earth is. So, as you go up, you kind of, the air is a bit more rarefied. It's honestly, the things that people grab onto to make them think that, so that they can believe that they are far more important than they actually are. And you know what? It's perfectly okay to just be, ordinary like we all are. Go about our business. There's nothing extraordinary about what I do. It's just, just because I'm on TV, big deal. I do the same things everybody else does. I laugh, I cry, I have good moments and bad moments, family, that kind of thing. There's not that much difference. Just because you seem to someone holds on to a theory, and they're basically saying, you know what, follow me. I have a piece of information that's really important, and you don't have, and you need to follow me and listen to me. That to me is narcissism, complete narcissism. Okay, so you know what? We've kind of gone on, pontificated a bit long enough at 1 hour and 3 minutes. One of my regulars, Delvin, has my timing for my record, I believe, is 88 minutes. We're done here. So, 9 o'clock, 9:15 tonight for the Joe and Joe Weather Show. We are going to have our live stream tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Another live stream tomorrow night at 7 p.m. on YouTube. And then, of course, we will be going through, we'll figure out what we're going to do with respect to the weekend. Again, a reminder to everybody, please remember that when it comes to hurricanes and tropical storms, you have to go to your official sites, your government sites. the NHC, National Hurricane Center, nhc.noaa.gov, or weather.gov for the National Weather Service to make your decisions. The maps, the weather maps that we show you here are not to be used for any kind of decision making. So you want to go to your local officials for that. This is 8 o'clock Eastern time, so if you're watching this later, everything is dated. Check for your updated information by going to nhc.noaa.gov and to weather.gov. I got the Patreon link that's up there on the descriptor to this video for those of you who want to join me on my Patreon page for tons of weather videos and much more. By all means, do so. It's just $2. It starts at just $2 a month. And you can also support my channel by shopping on Amazon by using the Amazon link on the descriptor to this video. This is an easy way to support my channel. If you normally shop on Amazon, just start with that link. Do your searching from there. You get your stuff. Amazon throws me back a little bit of coin, and everybody's happy. I get a cigar out of this. PRJG Grudge, thanks for the hit on Super Chat, and we will see you tomorrow, later on Facebook, meteorologistjoechaffee.com, or tomorrow right here on YouTube.